And welcome back to the Kenny and JT show here on News Talk 1480 WHBC. Guardians Spring Training Week continues, and happy to have with us now the third base coach of your Cleveland Guardians, Mike Saurbaugh, joining us. Coach, how are you today?
Doing well. Thanks for having me on. It's good to see you guys.
When we get to talk to you and Hammy and the players, that means baseball season is here. Spring training is upon us, Sarby, and this team comes into this year's spring training a little differently than last year. Not a lot of expectations, at least outside the organization last year. You guys get all the way to the divisional series. This year, kind of a bullseye probably on your backs in the Central and in the American League. So is there a different approach this year as you guys begin this spring training?
Well, I don't think you approach it, you try to be consistent on your approach, from day one, no matter, the club. You're preparing them for a season. I think last year going into it, there was a lot of question marks, a lot younger club. So you don't really know how things are going to develop. Like you said, the year we had, maybe happened a little quicker than most people thought. But the young players that had the season they have, now you fast forward that into this year, you have players that, the Quans, Jimenez, some of those players that establish themselves this year, knowing that they're going to be on the club. Now, how do they prepare for it, but also keep that fire going that, that they had when they're trying to make a team out of spring. So you try to balance that, and you just try to be consistent in your message.
Coach, last season when you guys brought up, I think it was 17 rookies. How much more stressful was that on you as a coach?
Well, I think you approach it, you try to approach it the same way. You are, with Jose and some of the guys have been around for a while. You know what to expect from them. I think just you try to get as much information from your minor league staff, especially for me, how they run the bases, maybe things to look out for. And then on the defensive side, their work they're putting in. But fortunate for us, a lot of these players are in camp with us. So you do get to have that relationship. You have an idea of what to expect, but you still want to get that information from the minor league staff to help prepare you for, to allow yourself to get the best out of the players.
Mike Saurbaugh, our guest here on the Kenny and JT show. And Mike, a lot of times we'll see you do this. That means stop. We'll see you waving them through around third base to send them home. Besides that, share with our viewers, listeners out there, what else you are doing as a coach as well as the third base coach with this organization.
Well, yeah, you're doing that. I'm doing the third base job. Doing a lot of homework on watching the outfielders' arms on video, trying to get as much information on the middle infielders' relay arms, just trying to get all that information. Then on top of that, I'm also involved with organizing the infield side of it. So preparing for the day, the early work that goes in during batting practice, and then looking at video, spray charts, trying to get the information on where to position the players throughout the game. So, that usually the first game of the series is going to be your heavy day of a lot of information that you're going through. And then as the series goes on, it becomes less, but you want to make sure you're prepared. You're looking at getting as much information from the front office side, and then also doing your own homework on video. So there's a lot that goes into it.
Coach, your thought on some of these rules changes as it reflects on running the bases, the size of the bases itself, the shift, reflect on some of those rule changes.
Well, the shift part of it, I don't think it, we play normal, some, not all the time, but, you're moving the shifts, but it's the traditional game. I don't think that is going to be as much of an adjustment as, the bigger bases. Not only are they a little wider and bigger, but they're not as crowned either. So from a base runner standpoint, a lot of them try to hit the inside part of the bag. They're not going to have as much bag to push off on because it is a little flatter from what I see. So it's going to be interesting once we start tomorrow in our first full day, when the guys get on the bases, maybe getting some feedback from them on if they do feel a difference. Hopefully they don't, but there is some adjustment, I think, that's going to go in. From an infield standpoint, I went out there, and some players like to take the throw from the catcher in front of the base, and now catching the ball and then putting the tag down, you've got more bag to cover. So, you know, that the player that slides to the back part of the base might be a little easier for them to get be safe. So those are some of the things we're going to have to work on and try and make some adjustments.
We were talking before we started the interview, Mike Saurbaugh, that you've been with the organization for many, many years, player, coach, manager, coach, spent some time in Canton and that. Can you, for our listeners here in the Canton area, your memories of the Canton Akron Indians as a player and also as a manager with Akron?
Yeah, you know, we talked about Thurman Munson Stadium, a lot of good memories there. And, you know, there were some good clubs. I was there in the early 90s. You know, that's when Tomey was coming through. You know, Charles Nagy and a lot of the players that became, you know, what happened in the mid 90s. So it was fun to be a part of it. And you know, just, you know, I can remember at the bleachers, people banging on the bleachers and you can hear it in the dugout, you know, and just, it was great because being that close to Cleveland, you always felt, you know, the Indians at the time, Guardians, the fans, you know, the fever they had for the team. And I think it was a lot of fun being there and being close to Cleveland and having that relationship with the fans.
Something else I picked up on, you know, as we talk about the old days, I was reading on your Wikipedia page that you actually played in the movie Major League 2. Now, if I'm not mistaken, Tito was in Major League. Who's a better actor?
Well, I'd have to say myself because they used a clip from an actual game, and I was actually on the set, so I'm going to take myself.
I like that. But Tito's going to come back and tell you he's one of the most handsome managers in all of Major League Baseball, as voted on by somebody.
Yeah. I've been hearing too much of that. Yeah, that's a little bit over the top, but no, that was funny. When I read that this winter, I was like going, "Oh boy, we're going to hear a lot of this."
No question. You've been with Tito all 11 years. This is the 11th year for both you guys together. What is it about him that makes him one of the best managers, not only in the game today, but one of the best managers ever?
Well, I think because of what he's done in the game. So if you start with being a player, a player was drafted high in the draft. He goes through the minor leagues a little bit as a player, gets to the big league at a pretty young age, you know, has to go back and then, you know, has to deal with the getting sent down, getting called up. So he knows what the players are going through from that standpoint. And then also he was, you know, he coached in the minor leagues, he managed in the minor leagues, you know, his Philadelphia years had a little bit of a, you know, maybe the teams that weren't as good as he had in Boston. So I think everything he's gone through is what made him what he is today. And I think he never forgets that it's about the players, and he's always looking out for their best interests. And I think you see that in the way the guys play for him.
Mike, we got to, JT, Bart's telling me we got to wrap up here with him. So we're going to cut you loose here and let you go do some more acting or coaching or whatever it is you're doing today there. Mike, we appreciate the time. We'll see you over at Progressive Field. All right.
Sounds great. Thanks for having me on.
Mike Saurbaugh, Guardians third base coach, joining us here on the Kenny and JT show. Back with more right after this. Thanks.